The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. Just to make sure the audio is working correctly, could you please confirm in the chat box or in the question box that you can hear me correctly? Okay, great. Okay, so before we actually start the webinar, I'll just wait for a couple of minutes for everyone to join. If you have questions in the meantime or have prepared a few questions, you can already send them, and I'll try to answer them as we pose along the webinar. Yes, it is going to be recorded, and I'm hoping that the recording will work okay. It should normally be recording right now, so touching wood. Normally the session should be approximately 1 hour. It might go a little bit over that, though, not always easy to make things short with regular expressions. Okay, so I guess that now everyone should be connected. So let's try with the first part of this webinar. As you can see here in this overview, we'll start with a few basics about regular expression. So I'll try to really keep examples and stuff that we'll be doing as simple as possible during this meeting, as it's not an advanced user how-to, but really for everyone to getting to grips with regular expressions. And I'll do that in three different parts. So first part would be about some basics. Then I will also cover the different areas of MemoQ that are using regular expressions, because there are really lots of I would say productivity boost that you can get by using them in a smart way. And the last part would be really about hands-on examples, like importing some kind of files, and how do you deal with things that are really non-standard and that you can now deal with directly from within MemoQ thanks to the new file filters and new features available. So first would be the basics. So the first thing I'd like to tell you about regular expressions is they're nothing to be afraid of. They're just a language to describe text strings. That's what regular expressions are about. And also that being lazy is actually a great quality when it comes to writing regular expressions. You try not to reinvent the wheel when you're writing regular expressions. Describing things should be kept as simple as possible, and reusing what exists around there is a very good way also of learning how to use them. What you see on your screen right now is actually a regular expression, but you'll tell me that's just a text string. Yeah, but that's what regular expressions are, just text, just describe in a very specific way. So how would you describe this? So this is a regular expression. It seems rather simple, but yet there are lots of different ways to describe that. You could tell that it's a group of 5 words ending with a dot. You could say that that's a text string that starts with a capital T and that ends with a dot and has lots of things in between. Or you could say that's a group of characters followed by a space, then followed by another group of characters, then a space, and so on until you meet a dot. those are just 3 ways that you can describe this very simple sentence, but there are lots of other ways that you could use. And that's a bit of the problem with regular expressions. Everything you see at the bottom, there are examples of things that would match what you see above. I chose them in kind of cryptic to make a point here. You could very well just write the same string, and that would also be a regular expression there. You would see, you know, what's above, and that would match. Depending on how you want to describe things, you can you match lots of different strings and have lots of different possibilities. And one of the things I'd like to warn you about is the, I would say, exponential complexity of regular expressions. Even though the basics that you're about to see are pretty simple, I would say, they can get complex very, very quickly. And you will see that as you start using them, you will almost always find things that you thought would have been simple, and yet you need to start getting a little bit complex in how you describe that if you want to cope for all the different possibilities. And that's a bit of the trap with regular expressions. When you keep it to simple things, that's usually rather fast to use. As you start to try and automate a lot of things, it can get really complex. So that's why I have a few simple rules here that I'll try to stick with. First, and that's really the most important one here, would be to try to keep things as simple as possible. And also, when you're describing a string and you're starting with regular expressions, try to stick to what you see on screen. Try not to speculate on what things could be, but really, you know, with what you have in the first place. It's usually much better to adjust or add a couple of examples as you see them rather than try to potentially match for anything. And you will see that also 10 commands are enough for basic usage of regular expressions. There are a little bit more actually than just 10, but really with the 10 basic ones, you will cover, I would say, 99% of your usage. And also one important thing is when you're using, well, commands, and in a few seconds I'll show you what they are, they always apply to what is described just before. So let's try with a few first commands. So basically, when you're describing a string, you would normally just spell the letters or what the string is made of. And there are a few things that you can use along the way that would potentially well, either match or help you describe this string. A dot, for example, a dot is actually not, you know, a literal dot, but that's something which matches any character in a string. Then you can also use parentheses. Parentheses can be used to mark a group. That's something I'll come back to a bit after. Brackets. Brackets are used to mark a range. Then you see this \s. That's something which is used to indicate a space, any kind of space. \d, that's a digit. Well, remember I told you that you have 10 to memorize, really. So those would be the 5 first one. You know, and the most important one would be a dot, which matches any character. And I would say that space and digit are really used also a lot. And groups, and the groups are really heavily used in MemoQ in regular expressions. Ranges can, well, be used or not depending on what you want to do, but those would be the 5 first ones. So even though you think, you know, just memorizing them like this would be a bit hard. Well, try to memorize them anyway. And that would be the same thing for the 5 next ones, which are more quantifiers. When you just describe something, you need to very often tell, okay, well, what I just wrote here, should it match as few times as possible? That's what we call the non-greedy match. And that to mark that, you use a question mark after what you just wrote. Or should you match 0 or more times, or 1 or more times? So 0 or more is an asterisk, 1 or more is a plus. If you want to match something exactly a certain number of times, you would use the not the square brackets, but the pointy ones, and you would exactly as shown here on the screen. And you can also specify when something should be matched between a certain number and another number of times. And that would be the last option here by using commas to separate those two minimum and maximum value. Also, when you want to literally match one of the characters that you would normally use as a command, like you want to indicate that you want to match an asterisk, for example, you would need a backslash and then the asterisk. A left bracket, which is also a command character, then you would use a backslash and a left bracket. Same thing for left parentheses. Well, here I just wrote 3 of them, but all the commands which I just showed you, and I come back to, if you want to match them and really, for example, you don't want to match any character but just a dot, you would use the backslash before a dot. Same thing for parentheses, for brackets. Actually, that's why we have for space, the backslash S and backslash D for a digit. So to be a bit more practical here, this is no conflict. Those are commands. Backslash S and backslash D are just commands. They're not an S or D. If you want S or D, just write S or write D. How would you describe, for example, a date when it's given in its numeric form, for example? Well, you see an example here, today's date written on screen. And you have lots of ways you can describe that, but one of the simplest one would be to tell, well, it's first 1 or 2 digits. So we use the backslash D to mark that we want to match for a digit, and then we use the quantifier to tell, okay, that would be either 1 or 2 digits in case you're using just a single number when it's the first or second of the month, for example. Then that's followed by a slash. Well, slash is just, that's not a command, that's a slash. Then that's followed by again 1 or 2 digits, so we repeat that. Then followed by a slash, and then followed by 4 digits. And here, same thing, we use the backslash D to mark that it's a digit, and then we have 4 copies of that digit. You could also write that backslash D, backslash D, backslash D, 4 times. That also works just fine. So here, the way I just described the expression, you could write it as you see here. That's the first way. Or if you're sure that your day and month will always be marked using 2 digits, for example, you could simplify a little bit and then indicate direct quantities. What you see here is a slightly different way of writing this expression. You can see that actually I used parentheses around the backslash D and then the quantity. So we have backslash D and two copies of the digit. Then I close that between parentheses, and that forms a group. That would be my first group. then I have a slash, that's what we see, then another group, and then another. Actually, I see that I have mistyped and inserted a space where I shouldn't have, but I'll correct that later on. But here you have 3 different groups. And why would you need to mark groups using parentheses? That's something actually I would recommend that you do a lot when you start with regular expressions, to mark really the different areas that you want. Even though it might seem a bit more complex like this, to basically put parentheses around everything that you want to match, that's a lot easier for you afterwards to read that, because you see here that there are 3 parts in your expression, and that group 1 can also be referred to in MemoQ as $1. Dollar is normally also a special command character. That's not part of the 10 basic ones, but that's dollar is also a special character. So if you wanted to match a dollar in a string, that would be $. So $1, it's the first group of your expression. $2 is the second, and $3 here would be the third. And the interest of using that with groups is that there are ways you can use your regular expressions in MemoQ, for example, to transform them. And that's the same principle that we use, for example, to automatically convert units or measurements, or reversing or transforming dates. For example, here, once you have your either translated equivalent, or just here that would be same numeric equivalent, but you can rewrite a date from the day, month, year format into month, day, year format if you want to just reverse group 1 and group 2, and then you would have your translated, between quotes, expression. So here, for example, that would be a very simple way of rewriting something. And there are lots of different parts of MemoQ that actually use regular expressions and that benefit from it. The first one would be very obviously auto-translatables. So that's a set of settings that you can use in your projects to automate the translation of strings, measurements, units. Well, you will see that that one is really extremely complete, and you can do a lot of things, a lot of translation automation in your project. So if you're heavily into the technical fields or financial fields, for example, those are 2 areas that could benefit a lot from smart automation. So everything you put in there would actually be offered as a translation result in your translation environment. But you will see that more in detail in the hands-on part. Another area of MemoQ that benefits from regular expressions is segmentation rules. Well, as you might have already seen, if you try to customize the way MemoQ segments text, we use actually regular expressions for that, and we'll go into the details of them as we as we go on the hands-on part. But this is another area that uses regular expressions. Another aspect of MemoQ that benefits from regular expressions are cascading filters. So you might know about cascading filters already, like for example the possibility when you have an Excel file to filter what's inside the cells as HTML content, for example. And what can be really interesting is that let's assume that you have a file which has some content that is not really purely HTML, but maybe some placeholders or other specs. Then you can also add another type of filter on top of all the rest, for tagging things inside. Custom tagging is really one of the areas of MemoQ that can boost your productivity a lot, and also that can increase leverage from your translation memories. One of the areas in which MemoQ 5 also gave you added productivity there is the regex-based text filter. That's customizable text filter that you have in MemoQ, and that enables you to import basically any kind of file, even non-standard ones, well, provided they're text-based. But there you can tell MemoQ what you want to import, what should be treated as something to translate, what should be you simply ignored. That's really one of the very interesting areas there, because thanks to that, basically as long as something is text-based, you can import it in MemoQ. So that's an illustration of the internal regex tagger, the one I was mentioning a bit earlier. And that's something you can use at any time when you created, for example, a local project, and you have some content which would be much better shown as a tag, for example. Then you can turn some expressions or part of text as tags. And you can see that you also have a little help there for that. One of the I would say less expected areas that benefit from regular expressions is actually quality assurance settings. As you can see here, you have a setting in your QA settings which is called check auto-translatables. And when you create auto-translatables yourself, you can make sure that your QA will warn you whenever you don't use one of those, regular expressions that is a match actually for something in your text. So that basically opens the door to creating your own QA checks or your own style guide, for example, and get actual warnings, software warnings about that. So that's something which really has a lot of potential there and is very underused by people in a usual workflow, I would say. So before we actually move on to that hands-on part, one of the things I'd like to show you is just a close-up view on some of the files that we'll be dealing with. The first kind of file is just a standard text file, and you can see there the view is slightly increased, that you have a text which is well, kind of non-standard. If you import that text file in MemoQ as it is right now, you will have lots of things that are not to be translated, like this start line or the ID or the text entry, mentioning that you will have text, and the little bits of text that are actually to be translated are, you can teach MemoQ how to recognize them in a file, and that's what you will use regular expressions for. The second example is actually a Quark Express CopyFlow Gold export. So that's basically how to show you how you can add to MemoQ lots of other file formats which are not, I would say, natively supported, as in, already created. You know that now MemoQ 5 allows you to import and translate Quark Express, CopyFlow Gold, and also the old Quark Express story collector from Trados. And those kind of files actually have been made available through that regex text filter. And here I'll show you how to do that, for example, for Quark Express files. Well, that's a filter that you will have natively now in MemoQ, but that's how it was done in the first place. A third kind of file is a file that actually used in another webinar, which is a simple Excel file with, as you can see on your screen here, HTML content in the cells, And inside those cells, not only do you have HTML content, but some parts of text that are actually placeholders there and that are not purely HTML. And well, this is a slide with some references that I'll also display near the end of this webinar. Just a couple of websites which are good references about regular expressions, and two tools which are worth mentioning. Notepad++ is just a freeware and open source notepad replacement that does take regular expressions into account. And prep tags is something I mentioned already in other webinars. So let's have a look at MemoQ. Sorry about that. Okay. So here I just opened a local project, and I have a couple of files in them. You can see that I have my project settings, and some of the things that you can use in your project are already there. First thing would be segmentation rules. Well, you can see that I have a couple of segmentation rules here that are available beside the default one. But here I'm just using the default one. And when I try to import some text, like this first text entry here, well, actually this one is in German, so that's why, you know, things are not really segmented as they should here. Well, you will see, and we'll come back later on for these auto-translatable here matching, but you can see that this call here for column is an abbreviation in my description. Well, that's actually, that part is in English, but sorry, so this column is something which is mistaken by MemoQ for the end of a sentence, this call here. And do we have other parts where we have something like that? Actually not here. Not here. This SP also is something that is mistakenly breaking a sentence. And this ABB. Okay, so what would you do normally to improve that? When you have when you have abbreviations which are regularly used by your clients, what you can do is customize your default segmentation rules for your language. Well, I will call that my own segmentation rules, for example, and then I will edit that. And there you can see already how MemoQ treats the text it imports and how it knows where to split. So this first thing you see here, this first part is and you see a dash before and a dash after. So this dash before and after some part of text are actually something which are proper to MemoQ. So those are not generic regular expressions, but that's something we call custom lists in MemoQ. And that's what you can see here on the second tab. So on this tab here, you can see that we have a list which is called cap, and that contains, well, capital letters, hence the cap. And in my list called and, I have a few things. I have a dot, I have a question mark, exclamation mark, and a colon. So things that usually end a sentence. Then you have two lists for abbreviations. One which is called abbreviations long, and another which is called abbreviation short. Well, with here short would be really usually 2 letters abbreviations. When you add your own abbreviations to your set of rules, I would rather recommend that you use abbreviation long, and you will see why a bit later. And here again other abbreviations, and L bar and right bar would be for marking anything that could be considered as a left parenthesis or as a right parenthesis. And you can see, of course, the parentheses themselves and different kind of quotes there. And here are the rules that MemoQ follows. When it imports text, if something belongs to the custom list, which is called AND, so remember, it's the dot, question mark, or, well, anything that marks the end of a sentence normally. So when it finds something that belongs to this list, and, well, here that dash, exclamation mark, and dash is a special marking in MemoQ that tells MemoQ split your text here. So create a new sentence here. So basically, right after that dot, for example, it would, well, if it was a dot, it would break the sentence. Of course, if it's something which is followed by a space and then a capital letter. Well, that's what you would have traditionally in a sentence. You would have a dot, then a space, and then you start with a capital letter for the rest of the sentence. But you'll tell me, yeah, but sometimes abbreviations do that, so why should we split? And here, that's why we have exceptions there. And you can see that we have a couple of exceptions. If something, if you know that string that we have matches something that belongs to the abbreviation long list, then we'll just split after the abbreviation. Well, we will not, split after the abbreviation if there is a space and a capital letter afterwards. And you can continue like this with all the different rules. So those are the rules and those are the exceptions. So if that is met, then look at the exceptions. And if it's one of the exceptions, then the rule is simply ignore and you go to the next. So here when we have something that ends a sentence, we split, well, provided that something which is followed by a space and then starts with a digit. And same thing, you know, well, for here, that would be space, left parenthesis, then a space, then capital letter. You have lots of different rules like that that govern the way MemoQ splits text. So more often than not, for newcomers to MemoQ, simply remember that adding your expressions to abbreviation long would be enough. So for example, this call here, I want to add that. And actually, I'll do the same here for this call with capital letter. Oh, it's already in the list with a capital letter. So that's why it didn't split correctly with call and lower letter, because that was not in the list. And we add ABBR. And we had also, sorry, let me have a quick look at, no, I don't have the text here. Call abbreviation, and the other one was for, oh, that for lines, that was Spalte, that was SP, and then a dot. So those three abbreviations, call, abbreviation, and SP here, let's see how MemoQ will deal with them. So remember, we still have our text, which is, you know, badly segmented here. Let's close that, and then we'll actually remove it from our project and add it again. So let's open that. Okay. And now let's have a quick look at our document. If you go a bit further, you can see that this is not broken down anymore. This is a proper sentence now. It doesn't break at the SP nor at the call. And that would be the same thing for the, oh, that was not ABBR, that was ABB, sorry. So this one is still, you know, I would say unfixed. I just join it manually for the rest, but you've got the example and see how to add that now to your list of abbreviations. So this sample actually is quite interesting, and that's just the text for a request I got from our clients that wanted to automate a couple of things in MemoQ. What they wanted is to be offered. See, when you had in your text Spalte and then a number, or SP and then a number, to always have suggested call and a number. So they were translating from German into English, and for Zeile or Zeilen, and you had a number bis and then a number, have lines that many, to line that many displayed. And same thing for the other ones here. So if I write actually that with numbers, and you can see that now MemoQ suggests me for this as translation result. See, for Spalte 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I do have offered as a translation result call and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And same thing here for something a bit more complex here. You have Zeile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bis 7890, and you can see that MemoQ automatically suggests the correct translation here, line something to something. Well, what you just did here with lines, and I'll show you how to do that, can be done with a lot more complex things. You could very well decide that when you have, for more information, click on button something, or see paragraph something, section something, and then in your target language have that maybe in a different order and translated in a specific way, then you can suggest that. So not only MemoQ will always suggest that translation, but also, as you can use that along with the QA checks, you can make sure that if you don't use that in your translation, then MemoQ will complain and tell you, oh, you should have translated that way, and I don't see that in a translated segment. So let's have a quick look at how it's done here. So that uses another part of MemoQ, which is called auto-translation rules here, or auto-translatable, which is the same thing. So the original rules that I used were those ones. And you can see that this is rather straightforward here. I chose that, particularly because I wanted the client to learn about regular expressions. So I chose to write them down all one by one, and with different equivalents. So you see that when something is written Figuren in MemoQ, and that would be my first group, and then there is a space, and yeah, space you can just also use space like this. You don't obligatorily have to use the \s, and then is followed by a number with 1 to 4 figures, then is followed by a space, and then bis, then a space, then a number 1 to 4 figures. And I want to replace that with figs, then the content of my second expression, of my second group, sorry. Then I write 2, and I write the content of my fourth group. First group, second group, third group, fourth group. So 2 and 4 are actually the two numbers I should write. And the reason why I wrote I wrote that using the parentheses is really to make it clear which was a group and which was not. I could very well not use the group around Figuren, same thing for bis, and then just have that around the numbers. I would just write with $1 and $2. But that was meant to actually show that as a basic example, so that's why. Then figure and then the number would be fig and then that same number. Same thing for Zeile, and I know that you see that SP and a dot. So remember what I told you about the dot. Normally the dot matches any character. If we want MemoQ to consider that as actually a dot itself, it should be marked using backslash and then a dot. Same thing for ABB or ABS here. So we have a couple of examples here that way, and that was the examples that was sent to the client. Now, what you can do is also try to streamline things a little bit, and that's what I did here with that expression. And here, what you see here can actually match a lot more cases than just what we had before. So I'm still using the parentheses to really show you, how and what is a group. And here you can see that I use also custom list. So when I have something that belongs to the list from, followed by a number, so that could be really one or more digits. One or more, that's the plus, remember? So it's not limited to, between 1 and 4. There could be really a very long number if there is one. Then followed by a space, and then something that belongs to the list 2. And same thing then afterwards, I do have a number, any number of digits. And I replace that with 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that would be in the same order, but what I have here is actually a very special list. That's not a custom list. You can see that this is empty. That's a translation pairs list. And when you use those, what MemoQ does is that it will, when replacing, offer the destination that you have written for the pair. So you can see that fig, I want to replace that with fig. If I have Figuren, I want figs and then a dot. Zeile would be line, Zeilen, lines. And 2 would be bis, and I'll replace that with 2. So basically what I have here is that when I have, Figuren something 2 and then the number, I would replace that with fig, then number 2, and then something else. So remember the bis replaced by 2, and same thing here. And to also cope for the cases where I had only segment or row or something, I have a list called elements. So elements and then a number, any number of digits, would be replaced by, and you can see that element would be SP for column, here Spalte, and I covered the different cases on how to write the Spalte, Figur, Ab, or Zeile, or ABS. Well, I'm not sure what that stands for in German, and that's for paragraph. And you can see the different entries. And here, if I want to add other cases, instead of having to write yet another rule, I just add something to my list of elements that could be converted. And well, from here, that's when you have, figure or line or paragraph. So section something, page something, could be also translated that way. So here with just 3 expressions, this one is exactly the same as the one above. I just added the possibility to match when a number is between brackets, because that was one of the requests of the client. And when you have a look here, you can see that okay, even in this sentence here we have ABS, and then the number is between brackets. I'm offered paragraph and then the number between brackets as it is here. And AB is actually properly offered as figure and then as fig, sorry, and then the number. The auto-translation rule will work whatever your target language. If you need to use special characters or things like that, that's something which might be a bit trickier to set up, but still it works. For example, for segmentation rules for Russian, for example, the list of capital letters actually covers all the capital letters in the Cyrillic alphabet to make sure that the Russian text is properly segmented. So segmentation rules, we saw that. We saw also the auto-translatables. You can see very quickly here an example I created, for example, for converted dates, converting dates here, month, whether it's number or just a month, and then followed by either a separator or space, then day number, and so on. And you have the translation pairs here. You know, when I have a date, I could have then the converted equivalent offered in you know, proper text in French. The today's date, you know, that is in my document would be offered as a translation result as 31 janvier 2012, which is, you know, proper way to write it, you know, completely developed in French. And that's the kind of thing that you can do. Unit conversions also, when you have measurements in inches in your source text, being offered the converted result, so or degrees Fahrenheit into degrees Celsius, for example, things like that. So that's the kind of automation that you can get with auto-translatables. So now let's have a quick look at another area, and that's what I wanted to show you with the other examples there. Particularly the regex import feature. You can, okay, so that one is actually the finished example, so I will remove that and try to import into MemoQ that document which I was showing you earlier. So that here you can see that you have some text, and for every bit of text that you have to translate, you have always that line which marks the start of, you know, what should be considered. Then you have an ID for that batch of text. Then you have text, and then the actual text to translate. And that actual text to translate, you can see, also contains some tags. You know, like you always have this to mark the start of a line, this for the end of a line, and UL for a section, basically. And same thing here, so you continue that way. So this was my first block of text. Then you have this end line, which is there. And then you continue that. We have 3 empty separators, then start. And by the way, you can see here also that this text is not a Windows text. That's something which has been created on Unix. So the line end here is just written LF. That's for line feed. And you have another type of text on other systems which is using a carriage return, CR. And you can see that also written. So instead of LR, you would have CR. And in Windows, you actually have both. To mark the end of a line on Windows, you write 2 bits of code. You write a CR and then an LF. So carriage return and line feed. That's what marks the end of a sentence in a text file. But here, as it's not a Windows base that has been created on a Macintosh, that's why you have that. And you can see that you have also in your text some placeholders here. And this is neither HTML nor anything, you know, standard. Well, those are really pretty straightforward here. You know, you see that here, that would be the name of the account, then the date range, then. But that's something that actually you don't want to translate. In MemoQ, you want to be able to use a tag for that. Well, for many different reasons. The first one is that when you have that considered as a tag, in your translation memory, as it's a tag, that's something which can be replaced. You also get higher leverage, you know, from your TM, because you concentrate only on the meaningful text and not on the parts which are just placeholders and that you would consider as text, because it's not text. So let's import that into MemoQ. I will import that, and I chose Add Document As to show you what we'll be doing here. So I could be sorry about that. I could be using just the regex text filter here to tell MemoQ what I want to import and what I don't want to import. I could also afterwards be using the regex tagger to make sure that that I mark these parts which are actually replaceables as tags. So, and both combined would actually be a cascading filter. So you would add regex text filter, and you click on add cascading filter, and after you will have a regex tagger. So you will use both. And well, to gain a little bit of time here, cascading filter, I will be just reusing what I've oh, that's not actually that one, but another one. Yeah, it's that here. So regex text filter, what do we do here? Encoding, well, we just say, okay, try to detect whatever encoding that is and don't touch anything. About the new line type here, I say, well, just use whatever was there, but you could also specify whether you want to deal that within the Windows environment or change things. So just leaving everything as it is right now. And here, this paragraph part would be normally to mark well, what we call paragraphs in MemoQ. In the sample files I have here, I won't be using that one, but that's basically to tell MemoQ, okay, please match that, and this part of the line would be the text to translate. This can be imported as a comment. This should be considered as an ID, for example, because you can also use ID-based context matching in MemoQ. And that is extremely interesting when you want to translate complex stuff like PHP, well, not PHP scripts, actually SQL scripts or stuff like that, where you have unique IDs associated to your text. For example, you can do that. Well, I'm not using that, so as I don't have any paragraph rule to mark what I consider to be a paragraph, then MemoQ will import everything. Then I will exclude some parts. The reason why I'm doing that, so instead of telling MemoQ what to import, I will tell it what not to import. So import everything except, well, these start lines. So this I will mark that as excluded. These end lines. Remember also the ID line, so that would be ID column. And then I have a second group here. Well, actually, I could very well not be using groups at all, but just for sake of clarity here. And then that would be any character and any number of times. Remember the asterisk here, it's 0 times or more. So even if I have ID and then nothing afterwards, an empty ID, that would match. Until it's always implicit when you're excluding things here that what you describe is the complete line from start of the line to end of line. So here that would be match until the end of line, of course. Then text, when I have text something and I just mark that as excluded. And of course that would need, as it's my full line, that would only mark when that is the start of the line and that is the end of the line. So you don't need to be using those two characters that you sometimes find, for marking start of line, this caret and the dollar for marking end of line. You don't need to add them. Then when you have this, and that would be a dash between 3 and 99 copies of a dash, I would exclude that, but I would mark that, but as few times as possible. So remember, that's something which I use actually to exclude lines such as this. You can see that in some parts I have full lines of dashes like this. In others, I have at least 3 of them, but it can be any number. Sometimes it's 3, 4, 5, sometimes it's like 50 dashes. So basically here, lines which are just made of between 3 and 99 dashes. then I will also mark anything in my text which is BR and then slash and then the UL, the LI. So basically what always stands before my text to translate and after, I always mark that also as things to be excluded. And when you click on preview, now you see that. You see the text that you will import, and you can see in red and gray here what will be excluded. And that's what we want here. All those parts would be excluded. And you can see that for time being we still have these placeholders left. And the lines of dashes and the rest. So basically we import everything but that. And here you can see that we also have something which is, well, and that's actually very old HTML. That's why it's not normally considered really HTML now, but that strong tag. And that's why we have the second part, the regex tagger, so that as it comes after the regex text filter, so whatever we import from the regex text filter, now we will tag and say, okay, strong, which is an open opening tag, I will just tag that. Then whatever is marked as /strong, and that would be my closing tag. And when I use $0, that's made to match the entire match. $1 would be first group, $2 second group, and so on. $0, that's the whole group which matches. That's my whole expression. The third line here, anything that starts with a lower than, then has a percentage. Then I create a group and say, okay, match any character 0 or more times, but please as few times as possible until I meet a percentage and a greater than. So the reason why I'm having this question mark here is to make the match non-greedy. And that's the important part, because see these placeholders, where were they? Yeah, you can see them here now. If you, by default, if you don't tell MemoQ not to be greedy about matching, it will try to match as much as possible. So when I say, okay, anything that starts with lower than, that's fine here. Then percentage, well, that's fine. Then any character, so that could be really anything until you find percentage and greater than, that would match here and there and there, and until it finds the last percentage and greater than. So that would mark a huge block of text as something to, as a tag actually, and that's not what I want. I want to really to have each tag marked separately. So that's something you should try actually to use a lot, this non-greedy matching. Basically this group here is your what you would use as an asterisk somewhere else. So any character 0 or more times and as few times as possible, until, well, the rest of the expression is shown. That's your joker here. That's really anything, and that anything is my first group, and that's what I will use in the name of my tags. And when I click OK to import using those settings, okay, now you can see the result. Well, I have then only my text. You see that I don't have this start, this end, and so on. So I have, my text, which is well, properly segmented. Here, as it's supposed to be English into French, we might run into, yeah, for example, I have a quick glitch here with the zum Beispiel. Of course, if I was properly using a project from German to something else, then that would have taken the zum Beispiel into account. But let's go a bit further, and you can see here You can see that in my text to translate here, I have my entries which are properly shown. And here I just use the account name, you know, to show, I would say, a lean tag instead of having to show the lower than percentage and everything, which I could have. If you just let the $0, that's fine too, and you would just see the whole string matching instead of just a name. And here you are, basically with your text translate. Now you can translate that in MemoQ directly. You can see that these strong, here I have my opening tag, here I have my closing tag, and I chose to retain the full text here, but you could very well use something like bold and /bold if you prefer, you know, or well, whatever you want to call that. So that's basically what you can do here with the regex tagger. When you have something you want to match, you want to, for example, have this register blat, and you want that every occurrence of this be considered a tag, well, just an empty tag. Just click here. Yeah, run tagger now. I want to run that on my document. And you can see that all occurrences of register blat here are just marked as a tag. Would it be a problem when exporting the file in a Trados compatible format? No. You would just have a tag. You would have a placeholder for a tag here. That's it. Okay, so this was our first file. The second one, okay, sorry, let me come back to my samples. I'm not sure which was the first and which was the second. Yeah, first one we saw that. Oh, second one is the Quark Express file. Okay. So let's have a quick look, actually, let's have a quick look at those in the notepad here. Because here you can see the actual, you know, line ends and everything. So here is my Quark Express CopyFlow Gold export. You can see that, well, it looks like a mess at the beginning, but actually all my sentences to translate always start with that, a dash, box name, and then the name of the box. That's actually the text box reference in Quark Express. Then you have version number, and that's the version number of Quark Express. Now you have font information, and that was the tricky part to deal with in MemoQ, because I thought, okay, well, how do you tell what to translate and what not to translate in there? But actually, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Every time you have something to translate, well, you see that you have lots of arrobas and then something from some font information equal, and then some tags there. Those are always tags, and they, you know, start with greater than and end with lower than, or have some more fancy writing there. But always when I have text to translate, that always start with this arrobas, then something, then a column. Then I have some last minute font reference, but that always ends that way with a quote and a greater than. Because here you have the actual name of the font inside your Quark Express. And then, so they end that and then end the tag. And then comes the part to translate. So here, you see that here you had not much because you had just a 0 and a couple of tags. And that's the first one. Actually, the first one is always that way. But here you can see something to translate. Here you can see something to translate, and so on. And here, and that's the tricky part here. I thought at the beginning that I would have, you know, that for each line, but that's not the case. Here you see you have 2 lines of text to translate but that second line actually starts right after the other one. And when you go a bit further into the text, you can see even trickier parts, because you can see that for this box here, well, you can safely ignore all that, but right after that, when you start socket Bob, and you see you have lots of things to translate until the next box name. So basically here, everything I just selected is something to translate, with a couple of font changes and everything in the meantime, but that will be able to tag. So I chose, instead of trying to describe each and every line, to import everything and tell MemoQ what to ignore. Okay, let's import our file. That's a .tag file, yeah. And I will choose cascading filter, and I want to, export copyflow gold.tag. So what do I do there? No paragraph rule, because I want to be importing everything. Then what do? I can exclude lines that start with dash, box name, equal, then a space or not, and then an equal or not. The or not is for 0 or more times, and then, well, I chose a range here to exclude invalid box names. I could have used just any character, a match with any character any number of times. Here I chose that to make sure that I excluded only box names when they were legit in Quark Express files, and that is written using only alphabetical number, lowercase letters, or uppercase letter, or digits. If I find any other character in the names, I just import that, so I don't exclude it. Then version numbers, and then here are the list of the different exclusions that you will find, basically to exclude the different parts before the text to translate. Then also an exclusion for box N and the \T, which is for tab. And then that gives you that in a preview, when you can see you have lots of things that are just ignored, and the rest is actually imported. So that's my text to translate. And so that means that I do have some parts of text here which I should normally take care of. You can see that this is clearly a tag with some font information there. So that's why I have, after that, a regex tagger. And here I just tell MemoQ basically, well, anything that starts with lower than, then has anything inside, and start, of course, as few times as possible. And as soon as you find a greater than, then that's the end of my match. So basically everything between lower than and greater than would be marked as an empty tag, and I just call that tag. I don't want the full name of the font and everything inside. That doesn't matter. I just want that marked as tag. And I click on OK to import that. Okay. And you can see now the different parts. And you can see that the long tags with font information are just named tag, which is just enough information anyway for translation. You don't need to be fancy with that. Of course, that's something you can change if you want to, but that's much better to have just these little parts of text rather than the full-blown text as you see that, because of course translating that in MemoQ would be a nightmare. Or oops, sorry, have a small problem here. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So basically exclude everything you don't want to import. Usually it's much quicker to tell MemoQ what you want to import rather than what you want to exclude. But here we needed, because the cases were extremely complicated, you know, in some of the boxes, to rather import everything and then exclude afterwards. Okay, so the last kind of sample I wanted to show you is an Excel sample. Actually, okay, let's remove that one here. And let me show you the document. I'll try to do that quickly because we are pretty much near the end now. So this is traditional Excel, except that we have some HTML content, and in the middle of this, some parts which are just placeholders. So let's do that and let's import that in MemoQ. So basically what you would do normally, and I can use the cascading filter and use that to avoid, you know, unselecting things, but basically that's what I just did. Microsoft Excel, then I clicked on Add Cascading Filter, then say, okay, after that, treat the content as HTML, and that's what MemoQ does. And after that, again, add another cascading filter and add a regex tagger. And what do I do here? I just mark everything that starts with a square bracket. That's why I have this backslash square bracket. Then percentage. Then recognize this very common now group with any character 0 more times, but as few times as possible until I meet backslash right bracket, until I find a right bracket. If you want here a small help, you can click on this part and you will see that MemoQ has a small reminder. So dot any character here for the ranges, any character A, B, or C, or well, you can see that the different things, backslash S for white space, decimal digits. You have a lot. You have you even have a few here which I didn't mention earlier, but those are really not part of the basic ones that you will need most often. So here, basically, everything that would be between square brackets and starting with the percentage inside the square bracket would be marked as a tag. And I just use $1, so the content of the matching part here, and not only the whole expression, as name of the tag. Yes, I want to continue. And here I am. If I click here, you can see that I imported that, and instead of all the tags that I could see, you know, in the original Excel file, did I double click? I'm not sure. I did. And so instead of all the tags, I do have proper tags showing, and here for the placeholder, you know, a tag with the name of the placeholder. So, you know, marking parts of the text as tags is something that does increase your leverage in the end, because well, of course, if you do get a match for that thing and then a different tag because you have a different placeholder, then how can I get rid of the BR tag? Well, then by marking it as something to exclude if you don't want to. Here the reason is that I just changed an HTML filter, and the HTML filter by default marks the line break as something like that. But you could also, tell MemoQ, okay, please consider all the, BR entries as actually line breaks, and create a new segment there. So it's, pretty straightforward. It's just because of the default settings that I chose there, but that's something you can customize, of course. You can also write your own, basically custom text filter using HTML filter using the regular expressions if you want to. If you want to consider some tags differently than what the default HTML does, you can do that. And well, that's about it. So I did cover the different samples there, and we went a little bit over time. I hope that was not too boring for you. Just let me know if you did appreciate that and want to see some parts covered or not. So, but remember, these few simple rules. That's really the base of regex. With those two, sets of 5 expressions here, with just 10 commands is enough for mastering the basics, really. And here, oops, the last references. Sorry about that. I thought I was at the last one. Okay, was there. Well, thanks everyone for attending, and don't hesitate to send us any questions or details or any request to support@kilwell.com. Good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.